Tēnā tātou I te whare. Tēnā koe e tema, e tūwharetia o tō tātou nei, hui a te pō nei. Ka piki au ki runga ki ngā pai maunga ko rua hine me tararua. I kōnei a titiro au, I runga I te awa tapu ko manawa tū. Ko kura haupo te waka, au ko tēnei, ko rangi tānei, e mi ana kia koutou katoa, ko tai mai nei tēnei pō. Kia o tātou huhua mate, ngā mate I runga I a koutou, ngā mate I runga I a mātou, o tira haere o te atu. Kia tātou anō te hunga ora, anō reire te whare. Aku rauranga tira mā, e noho mai nei roto o te papai oia, a koutou, ngā iwi care, anō reire nau mai hara mai wangi a tātou. E tū ana hau te taho o tōku whaia Debbie, māua ko he wāri Māori hau, nō reire he tino meharo tēnei, he tū ana ki te mea te kia koutou katoa. Hoki atu rā, aku mihi kia koe e te pāpā Grant, koutou mā, e noho mai nei I tēnei tūru. Tēnā koutou everybody, Rolly Fitzgerald is my name. An absolute honour and privilege to be standing here before you for the first Māori, one of the first Māori ward seats alongside Debbie Marshall-Lobb. And Tema is absolutely right. We're kind of thrown in the deep end, but that's okay. It's nothing new to us. In terms of what I wanted to talk about tonight is to firstly pay homage, respect to those who came before us, because whilst we're the first Māori ward candidates, we're not actually the first Māori city councillors of Palmerston North. Me rio māua whakaro kia Sam Mihaere. In 1962, I think he was the first Māori city councillor for Palmerston North. And in the mid-80s, the strong wahine toa Wana Davis and Debbie's mum, Yvonne Marshall as well. So for the both of us to be standing here tonight is to reflect and pay respect to those three particularly who took and carried the mantle of speaking for all Māori that were living here in Palmerston North at that time and are still living here today. When I read on the website that Debbie and I have a particular voice for the entire Māori community, but we also represent the entire community, I noticed with some reprehension that our councillor colleagues weren't given the same respect, I suppose. So for me, and I know that the new councillors that are coming on board this year will also be required to uphold the mana of Te Iwi Māori, so that it doesn't just rely on Debbie and I to carry that workload. So we're not relieving them of their responsibilities for our Māori community as well. My mother, Tangihoro Fitzgerald, 85 years old, is sitting in front of me, and like many of her generation through the urban drift who left our rural coastal communities, mums from Ngāti Pro on the East Coast, many other iwi also came to Palmerston North, and as I was growing up, I learned a lot about what was happening here before my time, and particularly with the Māori land court hearings that were held here in Palmerston North through the 40s, 50s and 60s. So there were a lot of iwi who were moving into Palmerston North, but particularly coming here to have their land claims heard in our district court. Whilst they were here, and you might have seen some footage on Manawatu Heritage Site, there's a photo of Māori congregating in the Coleman Mill corner of the city of the square, where the rangitane hosts were cooking kai for all of those iwi who were coming here to bring their claims to the Māori land court. I'm reminded too of our tūpuna pāpā Te Pēti Te Awiawi and the statue that adorns that corner of the quadrangle of the square. And at the bottom of his statue, those of you will already know what he says. And it was that, kua kaupapa i au te aroha, mā koutou e whakaoti. And what he was talking about there was that he had laid the foundation on behalf of rangitane for the rest of rangitane to show manaakitanga, to show kaitiakitanga to all of those who live on our whenua here in Palmerston North. So I'm particularly carrying that forward into my role as council. But I'm also reminded of my father's brother, Ginger Fitzgerald. As I was younger, I remember Uncle Ginger saying, rangitane's role in Palmerston North is to care for all the people. So e mihi anō kia koutou katoa. Ngā iwi o te motu noho mai nei tēnei pō, so to all of the Māori community who are living here amongst us, it's our privilege to have you in our city, and it's our duty to care for you as well as care for all the other people in the city as well. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa.
Tēnā koutou. Yes.
Tēnā tātou e te whānau kua hui mai nei I tēnei pō. Nei rā te mihi matakuikui ki a koutou, e te koromatua o te kaunihera nei, tēnā koe grant o te rā, tēnā koutou I ngā tāne ka rere ngā mihi ki a koutou o te rā, ki te hunga I tai mai I tēnei pō, tēnā koe kuitangi o te rā, tēnā koutou, whai Winifred, whai Penny, koutou, te iwi Māori, nō reira ka rere ngā mihi ki a koutou katoa. I te taha o tōku mama, nō rangitāne ki Manawatu, rangitāne ki Wairau, rangitāne I te taha o tōku hoa rangatira ki Wararapa. Aha koe he rere ke ngā kāinga, e whā, ko tai te iwi o rangitāne. I te taha o tōku pāpā, pērā ki te pāpā, te mama o takutungane nei, kua tai mai aia, mai te awa o Wanganui, nō reira he taura here aia ki konei. Kua tipu ake au I konei, I tēnei taone a tāhu o tātou, ki rangitāne o Manawatu. Kua whakatipu hoki a hau, māua ko tōku hoa rangatira Anthony, I a māua tamariki, e whā, kua haere rā rātou ki te kohanga reo, ki te kura kaupapa Māori. Nō reira, ka tautoko au te mihi me ngā kōrero o takutungane a Rowley ki a koutou katoa. Kei te tūtahi māua, he tuahine tungane, he tino honore ki a tū kei Wainganui I a koutou. Nō reira I ngā rangatira, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to stand before you tonight and to endorse and support the words of Rowley. We have a really special relationship in that we are not only kin through being rangitāne, but we also have the notion of tungane, brother, tuahine, sister relationship, and I acknowledge, like he does, those who have gone before us. And it's pretty exciting times, isn't it? To have Te Puao Ward and 2 positions that are made available for Māori to have genuine representation and to contribute and sit at the table to make decisions about our city and the community is a privilege and an honour, and something that's not lost on us. Both Rowley and I, of course, are proudly rangitāne, but as he had mentioned, we will support all Māori within this area and tautoko, and in fact the wider community. So we are here for everyone. We know our role as determined by our tūpuna was to Manaaki, is to Manaaki people. I was pretty excited the other day when I'd heard that there were 133 ethnicities represented in our city, and I thought that that's something very, very special, and as a taonga as well. However, we do know also that we are te reti o Waitangi partners, and that's our hope and aspiration that we fulfil that in a way that is not only collaborative and cooperative, but also mana enhancing for both, mutually enhancing. Nō reira, ka te aki rā I tēnei wā, tēnā koutou, kia ora.
Kapoi. He te whatukura I te tuhi Māori kura tēnā kōrua. And that's the formalities are done with. First and foremost, how do you feel? How do you both feel being the first Māori ward candidates on the Palmerston North City Council?
Pretty excited, very excited in fact, and we think that this is something that is very special, 2022, and with the establishment of Māori wards throughout the nation, I think change is afoot, but in a good way that will support and enhance our communities.
And you, Rolling, same question?
Yeah, absolutely. Tautoko, what probably be saying too. And I guess the grounding for me particularly will be to keep reminding myself of those that came before us. And that's what's going to carry us throughout.
Tell us about the skills, the knowledge and experiences that you both will take to the City Council over the next 3 years.
In Māori, there's a saying, e haramata kumara I kōrero mai mō tōna reka. And so you pose quite a difficult question there, because it is very difficult for us to sort of say what we've done and where we've come from without sounding whakahihi, boastful. But speaking for myself, I've had 42 years in education. I've been a secondary and a primary school principal. I was principal at Te Kurakaupapa Māori o Manawatu, which was one of the first six piloted kura throughout the country. And my own children grew up in Kohanga Reo and Kurakaupapa Māori. And nice to see Whai Penny here. And she knows that journey that we had, which was really tough in those days before Learning Media Centre came about. I also lived in Auckland for a while and was trained as a teacher of the deaf and worked at Kelston School for Deaf, and then did some time at St Dominic's. So lovely to see the signing too. And then went into Māori education with the establishment of the kura, but I have taught in mainstream, primary, secondary school and mainstream settings as well. And have just thoroughly enjoyed my time there in that education. But it does give you an idea when you're in that role as a teacher, as a principal, of the diversity within our community and the needs of whānau and the challenges that they face too. And with that understanding, and also knowing the aspirations of parents. I've never come across a parent that doesn't want better for their children than what they had. So I do think that I hopefully bring that skill set, and I'm proud to have been born and raised here in Palmerston North and raised my family here as well. Kia ora.
Tēnā koe te. Rolling.
So I guess for me, it has been a privilege to learn what I've learned to date. The largest part of my career has been in property and in real estate, and then I was very honoured and fortunate enough to be part of the Rangitano Manawatu Investment Trust, which is our post-settlement corporate entity responsible mainly for commercial development around the city. And our first big project was the Quest Hotel on Fitzherbert Avenue. Going through that post-settlement process, we quickly realised that we didn't have all the expertise and the skills to become property developers, not that we wanted to. So we recognised the need to go and get those skills and bring them into what we were trying to achieve for the iwi, but also for the wider community. 16 or so years in real estate in the Manawatu and Foxton gave me a good understanding of being able to speak to people, to listen to people. I do like listening to people. Some people in the audience might be thinking about that differently. But one of the other proud roles that I'm very proud to have is to be involved with Te Tihi o Ruahine Whānau Order Alliance, with a particular kaupapa around housing. So I do have an eye for the housing portfolio at the council, and reading the pre-election report produced by the Chief Executive. There's obviously the social housing, transitional housing aspect. It talks about affordability. One of the questions we in the Māori community have particularly is, what does affordability mean? Whose definition of affordable makes it affordable? In that report it talks about a median sale price of $660,000. So straight away when you do the numbers, then your household needs to be earning probably in excess of $100,000 a year income. So it's affordable for those people who are earning more than $90,000. So that's just a bit of a spin there. But through to Tihi o Ruahine, we're unpacking a pathway to home ownership for whānau. And you might have seen the first 5 houses that we completed just along Botanical Road there. Plans are afoot to do the next 5 in the Awapuni suburb, and then another 15 along Botanical Road as well. So being privileged and honoured to work in all those different sectors, I was able to pick up the skills from those around me, and I'll be bringing those, with a lot of my own whānau upbringing as well, into the council table. Some of the work I did at schools was helping schools, understand what cultural responsive practice was, and one of the beautiful things that came out of that for me was I had to, and I wanted to give descriptions to my upbringing. So for example, Mum and Dad brought us all up on Fairs Road in Milson in our younger years. I didn't realise at the time that inside the letterbox on our home we were living as Māori, the way we Māori live. Yet every morning when I went to school, as soon as I stepped onto the footpath, I was actually stepping into a different world that had a different world view. And so it's been an honour and a privilege again for me to grow up inside both of those worlds. And that's probably one of the key elements to my being that I look forward to taking into the council chamber. Kia ora.
Tēnā kōrua. Lovely. Before I open up to the floor, just one more question. What are the biggest concerns for Māori? What do you think are the biggest concerns for Māori here in Palmerston North?
I think Rolly touched on it in terms of and it's not unique to Māori, but if I'm referring to Māori, it's about housing, having somewhere warm, safe, and theirs to call home, and being able to pay the bills, buy the groceries, get the kids what they need. I think that's a really very, very much a real issue. The other thing I think of is taking care of our aged population. Some people we found with COVID. I think the Māori Health Authority's response was really good, but we noticed that there were many who were disconnected or feeling lonely, and I think that that's important that we keep everyone connected within our community. But housing certainly is a big one, and opportunities for people to remain connected is important too.
Tēnā koe.
Yes, and just to add to that, and it was the iwi Māori response through the COVID operations that the whole city got to see, and we might all recognise or pay tribute to how fast the Māori community came together and how quickly they were able to get resource out into those communities in need. So the question, Tim, is what are the big things facing our Māori population? The problems are not unique to Māori, but they're a greater problem for Māori when equity isn't the same. So being able to find a pathway to build that equity and to give back to the Māori population the opportunities for them to determine their own lives and their own pathway forwards. It's navigating the systems that has been a big challenge for Māori populations for many decades, and it still continues today. And it's unfortunate that so many of our whānau are reliant on those systems. But there's a lot of work to do, and one of the stepping stones for Debbie and I is to get our feet under the table in the council chambers and have a crack.
Tēnā wātu kōrua. I'd like to now open up to the floor if anybody would like to pose any questions to our Māori candidates. This is the time to do so. Don't all jump at once, please. He pātai ate, tēnā koe koe. Oh, sorry. So there's been a spurt of incidences which has involved some youth, predominantly from what I've seen of footage on social media, rangatahi Māori involved. And I think the question is, how would you respond to that, Nera? How would...
Tēnā koe whaia, Winifred. One of the things that I want to say is this isn't new for Palmerston North. In the 70s, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, this has happened before. But one of the things I think we need to do is to say, you know, we need to look at how we're responding. There's got to be a plethora of people around there helping. What's happening with the different services that are working with those young people. And we know that people are in challenging times. That's no excuse for anyone to hurt anyone else and to extend their rights over someone else's. So in the first instance, my aroha is for those who are the victims. Secondly, I think we've got to sit down and say, this isn't you. So what is happening that we're not addressing? And let's look at everyone, because it is a community issue. It is a community issue. It's all of our responsibility to provide services that really, and it's not just the young people, but it's the families that require support, I would say, as well. So I'm looking forward to finding out more about the services available, because I'm sure there are many out there. But we just need to coordinate it and identify a process and work with that, because it isn't new.
Ronnie, your response?
Yeah, don't want to throw too much petrol on that fire, but the only thing I will add is that it's not a Māori problem. You know, if you go back and have a look at that footage, it wasn't just Māori young people that were causing that disturbance. Kia ora.
Some of the kōrero that did come out on social media is that these kids are a reflection of their parents and the home in which they grow up. And e whakai ana kōrero ki tērā kōrero, do you agree with that?
I think that's too simplistic to say something like that, and we don't know the stresses and strains that people are experiencing at home, but there's a lot of families that are feeling probably very vulnerable, that within their own homes they need support as well. So yeah, it is a big issue, but I wouldn't want to put it on just the students or children or young people or even their families. I think there's some systemic issues that underline all that.
Tēnā kōrua. Right, any more questions from the floor? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Just leading from the previous question, like in New Zealand, we understand that we have got one of the highest rates of mental health and suicide rates in the whole of OECD, and especially considering our youth population, considering mental health issues. Like, and considering that Maori probably has got the worst mental health issues among any other ethnicity in New Zealand, what do you guys think that we need to do differently to tackle our mental health issues, especially considering our young people? Thank you.
First of all, mental health issues in our community are something that, you know, we all need to take care of and heed of. And the services, as we know, we watch TV every night, we know that they're stretched to capacity. But within our own community, we have people who care, we have people with skills, and I just think we might need to be tapping on our own shoulders to step up and assist and not necessarily rely on the existing structures. We have to be a bit more innovative about how we get that support out to people. Like, for example, if someone should have an incident or so forth, I don't think sending the police there to take them to the watch house for the night is an appropriate response. I think they need expert intervention and support then and there, 24/7. So I do think that we need to perhaps meet with those who are doing a fantastic job, and already doing that job. And I know there's some people in this room here who have been servicing and supporting people of all ages who are experiencing mental health difficulties, and to get them that support, and for their families as well. But the system we have currently isn't working and isn't matching that.
Anything to add to that, Rolly?
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to add to that is, I guess the whole mental health kaupapa and kōrero and story has become more prevalent in our community discussions, newspapers, media and the like, over the last 10 to 15 years at least. I think we've seen a huge amount of effort from community like-minded people who are stepping forward into that space. What's letting them down, in my opinion, is that the resource and the support that the Mike Kings of New Zealand have been screaming out for, John Kerwin's been screaming out for the same thing. The numbers have grown for those wanting to support mental health. It's a cross-community issue and it needs to be supported by the system. And if there's one thing that Debbie and I can give a voice to, it's about knocking on the doors of those people that are holding the pūtea and the checkbooks, and let's get it out to the people who are doing the mahi.
Tēnā kōrua. Yes, we have another question down the back there. Oh, yes, sorry, man with the, yes, black hat.
Tēnā kōrua, e tika ana te kōrero e tini whetu rangatāne ki te rangi, e tini whetu ngā tangata ki te whenua. Tēnei wā, tokorua ngā whetu kei rongo i te kaunihira o te papa i oia. The saying is correct, rangatāne have many stars in the heaven, many people on earth, and now 2 stars on the City Council. Hoi anō, ka mihi ka kōkoa, tēnā kōrua. Congratulations. Pēnei taku pātai, i te nuinga o ngā wā e wānanga ana kaurua i a wiki i a marama i a tau kei roto i rangatāne whānau. Tika ana. Pēhe o whakaro ki te whakatīnana i ngā kaupapa o rātau e noho papa i oia a hua mā tā waka kei waho o rangatāne. So my question is most of the time you'll be meeting within rangatāne and will be familiar with the kaupapa there. So how is it that you intend to give body to the voices of those who are mā tā waka from outside the district and take those kaupapa forward to the council? Kia ora.
Tēnā koe te rangatira. For me, sorry, perhaps for us, and give me a slap if I've got this wrong, Debbie, but one of the unique, beautiful aspects of our Māori community is that we already know how to get together as a whānau and as a people. So wherever we go in our own whānau journeys, whether it be sports, whānau hui or community events, the word travels really, really quickly around the Māori community. So I think your question, te rangatira, to both of us is how are we going to connect with our Ngāti Porou whānau, our Ngai Tahu whānau, our Whanganui whānau. And what's the challenge in front of us now is finding out where all of our whānau are. I don't think that you're going to find ourselves and having an office somewhere and getting people to come in into our agendas and our calendars and that sort of stuff. It's up to Debbie and I to find out where everything's happening on the ground out in the community and in the hapori. Yes, for rangitane, but we also already connect with a lot of other kaupapa from other iwi around the whole city. And so, you know, I just love going to the Albert Street markets on a Saturday to catch up with the whānau because, you know, and when I say whānau, I'm talking about people that I'm not even related to, you know, just catching up with them. So it's a big job, but it's an honourable job for Debbie and I to have, and it's a good challenge to place to us tonight. And keep us honest, keep us on board, you know, yell out to us or ring us up or send us an email. Come on, Rolly, haven't seen you for whatever. Yeah, that's what we're here for. So yeah, we'll do our best for you. We can guarantee that.
Ai, tēnā koe te mātua kei te tautoko au ngā kōrero o te tungane nei. We've already had a discussion and said, you know, that we need to go out, and I think we're pretty active anyway in terms of like Māori like going to hui, as Rolly has mentioned, and support kaupapa Māori as well, and that's where our people are. And so we will be going to places and putting up on our social media or our platform that we will be at possibly St Michael's for this time if someone would like to have a cup of tea with us, or we're at one of the kohanga reo, or going to the kura, or going to a workplace, or at the market. You know, we know where our people meet, and we look forward to that. I think we're quite cognizant too of that, because I know I had a father who was just a wonderful man, but he used to remind Mum that she was here and he came from somewhere else, and he'd say, oh, I know you're going to your rangitane hui, but I'm off to my taura here hui, which was a nice way of saying he's going to see his cousins and other people, and Rolly too with his mother. We're cognizant of the fact that we have many relationships that we enjoy, foster and celebrate. And we will be looking forward to touching base. And if ever you want us or need us, then please get in touch with us, because we'll be there. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora. Kia ora. And that's all the time we have for questions out there on the floor. We're pretty much coming up to the conclusion of this first part. But lastly, to you both, what is it that you two would like to achieve over the next 3 years on council?
I would like to see that we have, in 3 years' time, I'd like to look back to tonight, Tima, with you, and say, actually, we did advance kaupapa Māori for our community. We did tautoko all the other iwi that live amongst us, who are now third and fourth generations of people from Tainui or from Kaikohe, from wherever they are from, that we did make a difference by finding some more resource to support our mental health workers, that we did look forward to in supporting the new regime in the Māori Health Authority and those sorts of things, that we did give a real description of a treaty partnership. Bearing in mind also that to us Māori, we already know that our upbringing of manaakitanga and kaitiakitanga, all of those values that are intrinsic and so important in Te Ao Māori existed way before the treaty. You know? And so that whole treaty conversation, you know, we want to make it an easy conversation for our treaty partners to be part of. One of the ways we can do that is to support the understanding of that treaty conversation, that what's good for Māori is actually good for the entire population, to put it another way. So, kia ora.
Why, Joes, you haven't left much for me to say, have you? But because I support everything that Rolly has said here, I think that I too would like to look back in 3 years' time and say that everyone in our community have felt that we have added value, that we have advanced kaupapa Māori, that people aren't scared of things Māori, that they are supportive and understand the fact that we are Te Tiriti o Waitangi partners, and that partnership brings, as I mentioned earlier, mutual benefits for everyone in our community, and that we're enjoying and celebrating each other and supporting people that need our help the most. Yes, I'd hope that people would say that the two of us have, and Māori would say kua tūtuki pai, that would be our aspiration, that we have fulfilled our role admirably, but it will be the people who will let us know if we have or we haven't, and will hold us accountable for that. But it's a positive challenge, and it's one we're ready for. Kia ora.
Tēnā kōrua. Homai te piki paki paki. A big round of applause, please. Debbie Marshall-Lobb and Rolly Fitzgerald. That brings to a conclusion the first part of our nights, and now we head straight into the mayoral debate. If you want to stay, you can. Otherwise, I'll ask you to take your seats back in the crowd. Tēnā kōrua. Thank you very much. Again, a round of applause, please, for our new Māori ward candidates. Very quickly, I'd like to introduce Mr. Ross Barber. Ross, if you can wave out, please, and just so that everybody can see who you are. Ross, Hussein Kikhounga-Ngot, Glenn Mitchell, and of course Grant Smith. All right, so homai te whakipaki. Yes, please, a big round of applause. I know this is a very much anticipated debate, and I know there are a lot of questions that have been going your guys' way this evening. But first and foremost, we're going to have an introduction time. You've been given 2 minutes to introduce yourselves, and then straight from there, I'm going to head to Matthew Dallas from the Standard. We're going to get straight into the public questions that have come through over the last couple of weeks. All right. So ka tīmata ia koe, Grant, and then we'll make our way down the line. 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
Kia ora, Tema, thank you. No mai, haere mai, ko Grant Smith, aho. Look, firstly, just want to acknowledge Rangitane, Debbie, Rowley, what a hard act to follow. I'm a bit nervous. No, seriously, you did amazing. Fantastic. Secondly, just want to acknowledge my candidate colleagues here on stage. Look, it's been a real privilege and honour to be your mayor for the last 8 years. I have a head for business, a heart for our community, and a real passion for our city of Palmerston North. I love Palmy. I was born and raised here, and I've lived around the lower North Island, but I'm back here in the city over the last couple of decades. I'm married to Michelle and have 2 adult children, one of whom has moved back to the city. I come from a business background predominantly in advertising and marketing, so I guess I know how to sell the attributes, and this time our city. But I have served on many community organisations, both locally, nationally and internationally. And I think we have changed Palmerston North for the better in the last few years. In leading past councils, we have attracted investment, we've built infrastructure and facilities, and we've changed the face of our city, turning Palmerston North into a vibrant, heterogenic and sustainable city of choice that it is today. And along with climate action, I believe the economy and our people are going to be our top priorities approaching tougher economic times. And although the city is really well placed as we enter these uncertain headwinds, we must make the most of our opportunities. So I'm standing for giving ratepayers value for money, ensuring that we improve council's operational efficiencies, investing in ensuring we deliver key sustainable infrastructure, championing catalytic projects such as the Central New Zealand e-Tanganui distribution hub with its regional freight ring road and our regional food strategy, and promoting key partnerships, especially with mana whenua, rangitane, our multicultural communities, regional and international networks and other city partners. As Mayor, I'll use my experience, my contacts and independence to continue leveraging investment, both private and public, for the betterment of all Palmerston North residents. So I'm asking for you for a vote to re-elect Grant Smith for Mayor. Kia ora tātou, thank you.
Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou. My name is Hussein Kikhounga-Ngot. I have a background of refugee. I come from Congo-Brazzaville, French Congo, no DRC, but French Congo. Before coming here, I have an experience of being a policeman for 10 years and working in different ministry departments. Transport department, science and technology, and I end up in presidential office. I came in New Zealand in 2006. But today, I stand as a mayor. I intend to lead Palmy and its population of multicultural and diverse people into a new area of prosperity, embodied with a strong spirit of inclusivity, equality, and social harmony. For all my political and executive level of experience affords me skills that will drive my leadership goals. My goal as mayor: keep the city and population safe, encourage the people involving resources, utilize empathy skills to bring a sense of social positivity and hope into our community, encourage central government to offer incentive to encourage more business into Palmerston North or Palmy, as we want. reduce the poverty and inequality, driven dysfunctionality and division within community, improve condition with it and affecting family to allow future generation to realize their full potential. On the controversial subject of the Three Waters issue, I feel absolutely that the management of our water system in terms of water for drinking and everyday use, along with waste and stormwater management, need to be run by a local council with relevant guidance from central government, but absolutely not controlled by it. We must be able to make our own decision regarding management of resource and directional requirement of our area.
Tēnā koe, Hussein, that's all the time we have for your introduction.
I seek your
Thank you
vote.
very much.
Thank you. It's possible. Let's work together. I'll listen to you.
Thank you. Sorry, just a warning to our candidates. When you hear this, then you got about 10 seconds left of your 2 minutes. I'm sorry I didn't explain that at first, so I do apologise. You kind of went a little bit over there, Hussein, but keep the point. We're going to carry on with our next speaker, please. Tēnā koe.
Tēnā koutou katoa, kei te mihi ki a rangatāne no Manawatu. I'm Glenn Mitchell, and it's a great privilege to be here today to stand up and share what I'm about and what I can offer. First of all, I came here, like many others, to attend Massey University, and I went and got engaged in social anthropology, which is the study of culture. And I found it to be an incredibly rewarding journey. I attained honours in that, and then sometime following, I went and did a post-primary teacher's diploma. So I ended up in the classroom, where I, in a low decile school, Manawatu school, I was head of music. And then following that period of that, I ended up as head of faculty Māori studies. I got to learn a lot about young people, and that's one thing that I'm quite passionate about. I do come from I guess you could say I'm a grassroots person. And so for me, I think I actually don't like that we're over $200 million in debt here with the council. And I actually think that us paying $10 million in interest for financial mismanagement is not cool. And I don't think ratepayers deserve to be paying for that. I also think the awa is the most important thing. Ko au te awa, ko te awa ko au. And let's stop pouring our crap into it.
Kia ora, Glenn. Thank you very much.
Yeah, hello, Ross Barber. Well, quite a few times I've stood before. Just exposing lawlessness and corruption. So I'd like you to just pretend that you're a jury and a judge, and we'll just expose some of this corruption that's gone on with our council. The Local Government Act says members of a local authority are liable for loss. So we might as well give Grant Smith and all his cohorts and criminals and thieves, you know, this includes quite a few people, notice that they have to return everything they've stolen and misappropriated from the council. A classic example is the airport, and we've got a lot of documents here to substantiate our claims concerning the airport. How it was, the address changed from the council chambers, and it was originally operated by the Civic Centre or whatever, and they changed the address. And this was done by a guy, Mr. Rodney Wong. And we looked at Rodney Wong and seen if he'd misappropriated and stolen other assets, and there's a lot of other assets he's stolen. We also noticed that the airport had a caveat on it forbidding registration or dealing with his interest from Westpac Bank, and this person was Mr. R.K. Howie. And so we did a bit of research on Mr. Howie, and we found that he's actually...
Tēnā koe, Ross. Your 2 minutes is up. Thank you very much for that. We need to move on. All right? Thank you very much for that, Ross. I appreciate it. All right, so I wish to facilitate a very respectful debate tonight, this evening. All right, and it's very, very important for me as a facilitator of this kaupapa is that the mana and the integrity of each person represented on the stage remains intact throughout the whole of this kaupapa this evening. All right, so I ask you to please stick to the time limits that's been given to you, which is 2 minutes. Again, when you hear the knock, you have 10 seconds to wrap things up. All right, ke te marama, do we understand that? Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to introduce Matthew Dallas from the Manawatu Standard, who's going to voice, like I said earlier, we had a overwhelming number of questions and concerns from the general public that was sent through to different media outlets here in Palmerston North. And of course, Matthew has gone and collated all these questions, so I'm going to get him to stand up and start our questions from the public. Tēnā koe, Matthew.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to start off with a couple of questions around the issues that really, I think, dominated the public feedback, both through the Council's Facebook page and to us through readers, and also through discussions in our newsroom. And that was through transparency and Three Waters. So the first couple of questions I really kind of hone in on around transparency. We'll start with you, Grant. Are you a member or have any affiliations with Voices for Freedom, other conspiracy groups, or any political group?
In short, no.
Thank you.
No, at all.
I stand for democracy and anyone to have freedom of speech. So, in short, yes.
The purpose of local government, this is number 10 of the Local Government Act, it says to enable democratic local decision making and action by and on behalf of communities. But with the Three Waters, we really need to start up our own Three Waters with Fielding and Wanganui and have our own localised Three Waters. This is quite easy to do, and it sort of you know, we can share activities. The thing is, you don't want to be associated with Wellington and Auckland, because they've got Auckland's got $10 billion debt, so you don't want to be liable for their debt, because they're going to try to fob all their costs and expenses off onto us, and they're pretty corrupt. They're going to do anything to do that. And you've got to remember that some of the assets are owned by the mayors, the councils, and the citizens have been done out of their wealth or the investments by the PNCC, by the councils and by the mayors. They've been sold down the drain, and there's a lot. And if you look at their financial records, the transparency is appalling. The terminologies are.
We will come to Three Waters, but this was a question around...
I just said the Three Waters. I think we should do our own Three Waters with Rangatiki and Wanganui. That's a great idea.
We will come back to a Three Waters question, but this was around affiliation or membership to Voices for Freedom.
No, I've no affiliations to organisations.
Yeah, thank you. If I can just round back to Mr. Mitchell quickly, just for a follow-up. Some of the leaders for the Voices for Freedom have encouraged their members seeking election to disrupt councils with the goal of making New Zealand ungovernable. If elected, how will you respond to that sort of guidance?
That's the kind of gutter press stuff I'd expect from stuff. You need to grow up. If this debate is actually meant to be a proper debate, why are you putting your spin on it already? You should remove yourself from here, mate. Actually, man, where's the independent press? Right,
sorry, if we can go back to Grant at the end, please. Just expanding on the last question. Do you believe that the rise of populist politics in New Zealand, largely styled on the MAGA or Make America Great Again movement in the US, poses a threat to our local body elections and democracy?
Look, I don't want to get involved in US politics. Definitely, I'm not into that Trumpism type views. But actually, it's about Palmerston North. It's about issues and things that interest Palmerstonians. So things like, and actually you'd be surprised, I actually agree with Ross on some of that Three Water stuff. Look, our council hasn't formed a view on that, but my personal view is we could perhaps do some stuff locally first, and then we don't have any interest with Gisborne or Nelson Marlborough, but we might be able to do something at a local level first. So, yeah, I think a bit of more localism's needed.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm standing for Palmerston North City Council as a mayor. I'll better focus on Palmerston North. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there are patriotic things that actually do unite us in Aotearoa. I'm wearing my Anzac poppy here because the sacrifices they made for our freedom still mean something to me.
Sorry, Ross, the question was expanding on the last one, was do you believe that the rise of populist politics in New Zealand, largely styled on the MAGA, Make America Great Again, stop movement in the US, whether it poses a threat to democracy, specifically our local body elections?
Yeah, we're run by liars, thieves and cheats, and they're totally corrupt and lawless. I mean, I've heaps of documents here to support that. These are legal. And what's interesting, you know, like you look at this guy, Howie, he's associated Cooper Rapley and some of the big accounting firms in Palmerston, Nailers seem to be involved. These are some of the wealthiest people in Palmerston North that are in charge of assets that belong to the citizens, and so the citizens have been really shafted. Like ratepayers have been shafted out of all decision making and pretty much everything. And these guys have to give back what they've misappropriated, or else you know the laws are quite severe on people that steal and misappropriate monies.
Okay, thank you. If we can maybe stay with Mr. Barber down that end, and we'll bring it back the other way. Grateful question, where do you stand on Three Waters reforms?
Yeah, well, like I said, we should start our own Three Waters, and with Feilding and Rangitikei. I mean, it'd be great to have do something together with our neighbours. You know, I'd love to also do a motorway with Feilding to stop the people being killed on the roads. It's ridiculous.
Sorry, Mr. Mitchell, you want to respond to that question on your stance on Three Waters?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think Three Waters is actually really a breach of democracy. Our ratepayers' funds have actually funded this infrastructure over many generations, and I'm actually really disappointed that the council chose not to come back to the people that elected them to actually have that conversation about what central government is imposing here in the local community. I think that I definitely disagree with it, and actually Ross makes a lot of sense there, but I think the main partnership should be between Rangitane and the Palmerston North City Council.
Like I said before, and I will not change my mind about Three Waters issues. It's our heritage, and ratepayers rate being paid by our ancestors in Palmerston North, and then we have it. If the central government want to help, is funding a lot of projects, they can fund, and we can have a partnership, but not to control water in Palmerston North.
So look, everyone knows that we need investment in Three Waters. I mean, that is pretty well a united view right across the whole of New Zealand. So every council pretty well agrees that Three Waters cannot stay status quo. So what are we going to do? Actually, we need investment here. We've run some of the best water infrastructure in the country, some of the best fresh water. We've got a good stormwater network. but our wastewater, we need to do some improvements to our wastewater. We're the first major city in New Zealand to go to a full upgrade, and we already are in partnership with Rangitane, and we're already doing stuff together, including the wastewater plant. So we've agreed to put it to the highest possible treatment in the country. But I do agree with my colleagues that that conversation needs to start at home. So, but to do that, we've got to separate our balance sheet so we can get some investment. We perhaps need to get to central government and say, we need a hand on this because you're imposing some stronger regulations, some stronger legislation on us. So I'm in favour of like-minded communities coming together, our TA neighbours coming together, and then it may go further with central government to improve our lot. Thank you.
Just a follow-up question around Three Waters, which I think, Grant, you probably started talking into anyway, but we'll ask the full question. The council is reliant on Three Waters reforms to pay for the city's new wastewater treatment plant, but National has pledged to roll back the reforms if elected. Auditors essentially gave the City Council's budget an F due to the cost of the treatment plant. So what kind of plan B do you suggest for tackling the upgrade if National is in charge after next year's election?
Well, so look, if there is a repeal on them, they will have to come up with something else, because as I said at the start, we have all agreed that the status quo cannot exist. So we'll need a separation of the balance sheet. The council's got around $650 million worth of waters assets. That can be leveraged, absolutely can be leveraged. And in other countries, they do that. They leverage that balance sheet to keep the investment going. Over the last term, we've spent $85 million on Three Waters. So that's something that we should be proud of, but we need to do a lot more. Do we need help? Absolutely, Matt. So we would be looking to get some sort of CCO with our neighbours, and I think the opposition would be in favour of that, but there would need to be some investment. So we either leverage the balance sheet or we have to get government to support some of that.
Yeah. Like we keep saying, we need investment and we need to renew structure, and also the quality and quantity of water. That's for the tap water people drinking. And about the worst water and storm water, we still have a good structure in Palmerston North, because compared to other cities, it's a very not approachable. So I agree with my colleague Grant Smith here to do what we have to do for City Council, but acknowledge his knowledge and experience about this question. Thank you.
I just personally feel with the Three Waters, we are being pushed into it. There's just not really any help coming from central government. It's like so many other things. I do feel that innovation and other solutions to the problem might actually be more affordable for our community than going for the Rolls Royce. Thanks.
Local Bodies Act says you've got to focus on core activities. You know, you've got to define what your core activities are and what your non-core activities are.
Okay, thank you. Ross, if Barber, if we can stay with you. A question around roads. The state of the city's roads is a major source of frustration, particularly among some of our readers. Additional funding to repair potholes appears at least a year away, and Mayor Grant Smith has previously said what the council is doing is not working. What will work?
I'm concerned about the valuation of the under the roads of 350 million, and this was done last in I think it was 2005. So there's no current valuation of the land under the roads. To me, the land under the roads should be a liability. We've brought this up before, and the valuers Morgan aren't even like a listed company, so they employ these dodgy people to just make up, whatever they want, cock the books or whatever, and it's pretty bad. And you can't find these people. So I went to the Audit New Zealand to see about what was going on, and you can't speak to someone there. They're down in Wellington. I think the council must be paying $400,000 a year in audit fees, but you can't find anyone to answer any of your questions. The concern with the books is a lot of them, the terminologies aren't correct, like they're using non-accounting terminologies or terminologies that are not nonsensical and to a certain extent oxymoron. So they're contradicting themselves in the terminologies, and so it's really hard to get any sense out of it. And if to know what's going on within the accounts and within the investment in the road, the concern, I think they valued the assets. It didn't reduce last year. Everyone else's houses has gone down, but the City Council's houses haven't gone down. They've got $2 billion assets still, out of a total of $20 billion. So it's like, wow, how come the City Council's assets have stayed the same when everyone else's everyone else has lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, but the City Council, no, they're $2 billion. They've still got $2 billion.
Oh yeah, well, I think the elephant in the room could be actually, why did central government close down Marsden Point? I mean, Marsden Point was the one that actually produced good quality bitumen, New Zealand made, but now we import crap stuff from Indonesia. I think that's a good answer to that question.
Okay, business as usual has been pretty damn hard, right? We've got geopolitical issues. We have had some stuff which Glenn's just talked about, and council becomes a price taker, as other businesses have become price takers, and as price rises go through the roof. Labour shortages. So I'll be honest, I'm pretty embarrassed about the state of the roads, and I'm not happy with them either. How can we improve that? Well, I think we've got to hold our contractors to account, and I don't believe we have been doing that well enough. And that is something that I think our council pretty well agrees on. We need to get on top of what is going on with the roads, and we need to hold people account to that. Now, that's not going to happen overnight because we've got a lot of issues to deal with. But let's just start doing some real basics right, like fixing potholes correctly.
On my interview on TV, I told about the quality and control. We're giving a contractors, and City Council can create a job for people to do that job. But I'm against the privatization of some sectors. Contractors come for benefit. They can't do the job. Sometimes, yes, they can do the job, but we have to put a strong team of quality and control on what they're doing. Thank you.
Pose this one first to Mr. Smith. Palmy. Some readers really don't like that our city's nickname has been turned into a brand for the council and the city. How do you feel about its use?
Well, anybody that knows me knows I'm into heritage, right? And I don't like Palmy either. So I'm very much a Palmerston North person, and if you ever hear me speak, I start with the city's correct name. Which is Palmerston North to Papioia, and that is what it is. Palmy has been an endearment. It's been shortened, and look, it has its place, but I just think it's been overused, and I'd have to say it's been overused by officers at times, and I don't want to shoot the messenger there, but actually from the city, from the elected members, from the office of the mayor, it is Palmerston North.
I'm not going to make a big comment. I keep it Palmerston North.
I actually prefer Manawa too.
Yeah, Manawatu College is down at Fox and worked that out. That's quite interesting because the Arua runs through Fielding. They say that's Manawatu, and God, it's just absolute crazy where all these boundaries are, and like Horowhenua takes Manawatu, Foxton, and I mean, all this needs to be sorted out. They just can't carry on. You know, you look at all these small towns, Opaki and Tokomaru, Linton, I think Linton's mostly Palmerston, but these smaller towns need to be incorporated. So I think that definitely we need to change the name, mostly Palmerston North Local Council, to be more correct. And you know, I mean, when you do this, you'd want to indemnify yourself from all Grant Smith's debt. So you just start a new organisation, Palmerston North Local Council, you know, Municipal Authority Limited or unlimited or whatever, and then open up a new bank account and away you go.
Thank you. We'll stick with you, Mr. Barber. Can you name one thing the council should do to tackle the impact of climate change on the city?
Oh, it's sickening. All Grant's, he's the biggest polluter, and one of the biggest polluters in New Zealand. All his pollution stays he exports it. His answer, export it, send it overseas, dump it in the sea on the way, doesn't even get to its destination, send it to a third world country. No, hardly any of the, you know, Palmerston North doesn't manage its own pollution. This is sickening in this day and age that all of our pollution is exported to another region. This is like, you know, you should take some responsibility for your own stuff before you start dumping it on onto other regions or other districts. Certainly, you know, with the effluent and stuff too, there's better ways to manage it. We used to, you know, we used to have resource consents and stuff, manage large amounts of effluent really, really cheaply. And we used to use a swamp. Well, we put our stuff through a swamp. It works. It's a great way to manage. You know, just sort of let the effluent settle down and, you know, take some of the pollutants out of it and restore it to a good condition.
I think all the climate change progress or that pursuit is actually the domain of the wealthy. I think it's probably in the domain of those over $100,000 income that can afford houses in Palmerston North. You get a poor person that doesn't have much to rub together. Are they going to be driving a Tesla? I don't think so.
Waste management is one of the things that City Council should need to continue to manage. And another thing is public transportation. And we should always copy sometimes other people, what other cities doing in terms of reducing the pollution. On the weekend, for example, in Paris, one time to reduce the pollution in Paris, they said that each weekend people should use the plate number of the car. If you have a pair number, this week you don't drive your car, and the next weekend you use it. We can copy, and then it will reduce the pollution in our city. Thank you.
Look, as a council, we have really taken climate action and sustainability seriously. And council has significantly reduced its own carbon emissions by 23% since 2016, and we'll do more in this space. It's around energy, transport, waters, resource recovery, waste, urban design, even biodiversity. Think of Te Apiti Gorge, and you can just see the great things that have done, and the same with Turitea. So it's small and sometimes larger steps that really do need to be taken, and that all adds up to lessening that carbon footprint. And in this new term, if elected, I'll continue to really push that. We have a committee around environmental sustainability, and we have an eco-city goal. So we're held to account on that. We measure our carbon footprint annually, and you know, we are reducing it. So again, small and sometimes much larger steps will all add up. Thank you.
I'll stick with you, Mr. Smith. People are struggling to find a place to live. How do we get more houses in the city?
Well, we're the enabler. So we've built our own around social and public housing, and I think this council has got a proud record in that space. We have tried to influence the market. So as a council, we're the enabler. So it's around land use, it's around making sure consenting goes as quickly as it possibly can, and stop putting barriers in place of people. So we've done our own subdivision, Tamakuku Terrace, where we're not in competition to developers, but to try smaller sections, to try and make things more affordable for entry level and first home and young families. That's the way we can do it. And creating, more homes, whether it's repurposing buildings within the city centre, going up, not out, but where we can go sustainably out over lesser quality soils, just making sure that we get that right. So I think this council has done a good job in that space.
Yeah, Palmerston North City Council has built the housing for 7.3 million, but investing 7 million for the road, I found it a waste of money. We can use the 7 million to build again other housing and to have our citizens be accommodated. So we have a really technical people can do the job. But sometimes we're rushing. We cannot be pushed because we're under pressure. We have to think twice before taking a decision to do things. Sometimes we have to cut and then see where we were successful. Can't we do that again? Because the first housing of the 7 million was successful. But the road, I'm not seeing nobody's going and sleeping on the road. We want a CDB, not CDB, but we need to prioritize things.
I think effective leadership is effective delegation quite often. So bearing that in mind on this particular topic, I actually really respect the views of council candidate Sam Wormsley, who is actually electioning on a tiny home community. Tiny homes are eco-friendly. They have their own power source. They have their own composting toilets, water. So they would actually lessen the demand on our sewage and lessen what demands we will put into that beautiful Taonga Manawatu.
Yeah, I oppose that. Grant Smith, he said he's doing the subdivision, so our city council is involved in what is it, property speculation or property development and things. I'm not too sure how they get the legal right to actually use your ratepayers' money. If they, well, I guess they borrowed debt on it, didn't they? That could be where the 200 million's gone to. And what we need to know is what they use for collateral to finance that debt, and because we can't really see any mortgage documents or anything that the citizens and the ratepayers have actually signed or, to give them legal authority to debt. So it sounds like that debt is just sort of like ad hoc or unsecured, and to have unsecured money for doing property speculation is really, really dangerous. That's something that's sort of like people lead to insolvency and bankruptcy and these sort of things.
Yeah, Mr. Barber, a two-tier question for you. When was the last time you caught public transport, and what do you make of the city's road and rail options beyond the personal car?
I haven't used public transport for a while, and getting back, the roads are killing people. We've said this before. There should be a two-lane motorway to Fielding. People are being killed on the roads. We need to open up the gorge. There's people being killed on the Saddle Road. These are just they're murder. It's murder. I can't believe it's still happening. That these things are allowed to be happening in our society. The whole thing with our roading, that we've got such huge investment in it, yet we're getting no return from it as well. Like we used to have the Ministry of Transport, so you get some funding, but certainly we need to bring back that we in our own city council can issue registrations and warrants, along with insurances to people with cars, so that we can actually get funding to maintain our roads, so that people aren't just using them without contributing to that.
Well, what was that question again, please?
When was the last time you used public transport, and what's your view of the state of the city's, I suppose, public transport options?
I live in the rural Manawatu, so I usually commute to come into here in my own private vehicle. And looking at the council's use in the report, it actually stated that it was actually very poorly used by Palmerston North city residents. I'm unsure. I know that in Munich, in Germany, they've actually stopped their electric buses running, but they're the battery-powered ones, and just because of fires. So looking forward to public transport use, I'm not too sure how we could improve that unless we make it free for its citizens.
I work out of Palmy, so it's hard for me to use the public transport. But our public transport is poor. As I was saying, we can copy other cities. Greenback was an initiative of Palmerston North. Now, excuse me to repeat, Paris has get it, Vélo Libre. In Paris, it's an initiative of Palmerston North. We initiating and we losing. Now we have a scooter, which is good, but we can come back also in our greenback. Thank you.
Yeah, Pierre brings up a good thing. The scooters, I think, have been a great initiative. So obviously, the city only really looks after that roading network, remembering that the buses are the domain of our regional council, and maybe that's a question for our regional councillors. But look, how long ago have I used it? A couple of weeks ago. I use the Capital Connection a lot when I go to Wellington. I think it's a great service. That hopefully will become part of the Greater Wellington and connect the Manawatu into Wellington. And it's great that that's being well used. So ups for the trains. Buses, absolutely, we need to do better. I think we're really poorly served with quite an outdated hub and spoke model that we've got there. But I know that regional council, to be fair to them, are looking at a review and making that more accessible. Glenn's got some points on, do we make it free? There is some barriers. So what are the barriers? I think it's frequency, having the right mode of transport too. Do we need big buses? Do we need small buses? And also our city pathways, to our cycling community. And our cycling numbers have improved despite some social media. And also our pathways. You just have a look what we've done on the Awa, the river. That's been fantastic.
Thank you. One of our reader questions, which I'll put to you, Mr. Smith. Where do you see waste in current council spending, and how will you go about minimising it?
Are you talking, what sort of waste? What are you talking about waste? Which sort of waste?
That's the question from the reader, so I can't really speculate what they were saying.
I thought it might have been wasteful spending, so I'm into efficiency. But look, with waste, we've got to minimise that, and ways to do that. Giving you an example is composting and food diversion from the waste stream. So the city has done some good work in that space. So we collect waste on a paid basis from our commercial sector and some of our big entities, the Defence Force, Massey, those sorts of organisations, and some of our inner city restaurants and hospitality places. I suppose the next step is, and that hopefully will be supported by the community, is house-to-house waste diversion and composting. I think it's over a third, maybe even more, and I think that's a big way of diverting waste. And also what people are putting in their rubbish bins, and just seeing, in a consumer environment, we've got to think twice about what we do with packaging as well.
Was that about waste or wasteful spending?
The question was, it was wasteful. Where do you see waste in current council spending, and how will you go about minimising it?
I don't know how to... Oh, would you like another? I don't know how... I didn't mean that disrespectfully either. I don't know how they've come up with this, there's quite a huge sum being spent on upgrading the council dog pound. I heard the sum of $5 million mentioned, could be more. But I don't know, just sometimes I think some projects maybe need to be deferred or maybe just worked on a bit more, put a new roof on it or something, I don't know. There's plenty of other areas, I'm sure, that we could spend that money. So that would be my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, well, with waste, I mean, having, you know, a couple of pig farms and stuff, and I've got resource consents here and done a lot of, had a court cases with Horizons, and we found Horizons to be absolute rotters. They make Grant Smith look reasonable, actually. I've got an agreement here. I've got this is one of my resource consents, and it's signed by Megan Wilson, a regulatory administrator, and she's pretty much just stolen my resource consent. And this is totally illegal, and we've had huge, you know, they owe me a lot of money for the damages and stuff, and they you know, we had a court case, and they were supposed to come, they actually turned up at court, and when it was to their turn to appear, they didn't appear. So it's like, what, how, and these are supposed to be your regulatory people. We've got concern about the Manawatu-Wanganui Regional Council holdings. This is Paul Rega's signed that agreement, that rotter, he's stolen a lot of land too. And, you know, it's like when I'm giving Grant a hard time, he's actually doing the damage has been done by the previous people. When they've stolen and misappropriated assets, that's left the city council in the dire straits it's in now. There's this other company called Manawatu-Wanganui Lass Limited, and the shareholders in this company are Manawatu, Horowhana, Rangitingi, Ruapehu, Taurua, Wanganui, Manawatu, and no Palmerston North. What? So why are you paying rates to these people that are you know, causing pollution and causing all the you know, the mismanagement of waste within the city? It's absolutely tremendous. I did mail them and said that we'll collect the rates for them on their behalf. I don't know if I said on their behalf, but we'll collect the rates for them for the city council.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Barber, another reader question. How will you assist with preventing youth crime? With what has happened in Palmy recently and throughout New Zealand, we need things to help guide young people down the right path.
Yes, well, we've got the Companies Act now, and it's carrying on business fraudulently or dishonestly incurring debt. And so this is what our council is doing. And it says that every person who is knowingly a party to a company carrying on business with intent to defraud creditors of the company or any other person for fraudulent purpose commits an offence and is liable on conviction for the penalties. Every director of a company who by false pretences or other fraud induces a person to give credit. Well, these guys, if you've got like corrupt criminals running your you know, positions of power and authority, if your hierarchy is undisclosed, so we don't know who the PNCC is, we don't know who they call this thing the group is, we don't know what they've got no legal structure, they've got no ultimate holding company, they're, you know, it's basically every dog and every man for himself, and you know, when you have this sort of lack of leadership or lack of morals within your system, then it's very, very hard to criticise people at lower doing petty crimes and this sort of thing. You know, you've got to be consistent. In my speech we talked about Shariah law, and that's really interesting, or Shariah court or something. That's really interesting.
I can repeat the question if you like.
When I was a classroom teacher, it became pretty apparent for me one day when I was watching a young Māori boy come up, walking past the staff room. And as he was walking like this, looking at his feet. He had shoes. And for me it was like he had no direction. Okay, so for me it's about actually the self-esteem of the young person, nurturing it. Success breeds success. make sure, and you've got to wrap around the man, because they've got to succeed at school. School is actually a really major player, and we can change the world if our kids are successful at school. That's where the breakdown happens. I guarantee those ones that went through the plaza, were in the square, I bet you that their school experience was a disaster. I guess better partnerships with schools, programs that actually encourage self-confidence and resilience in the schools. Assimilation and mainstream education just doesn't work. Hasn't worked for Māori. Overrepresented in, you have a punitive response, and then what's going to happen? Again, rangatahi overrepresented in our criminal court system. We can't do it. It's got to stop.
Could you repeat the question, please?
How will you assist with preventing youth crime? With what has happened in Palmerston recently and throughout New Zealand, we need things to help guide young people down the right path.
Okay. First, the crime is a fact that nobody can control, but we can prevent, but sometimes you cannot control it. I hear people talking about the police. The police officers are not a magician to detect the crime happening somewhere. But how we can do it to follow the roots, to go by the roots, why these young people are becoming so useless. Why they're becoming a criminal, or even an adult becoming criminal. Why? So, I say that youth without ambition is I don't know, it's a casualty of the country. In our city, we have to put a program. The program to teach history of our city, history of our country. And then we have, in New Zealand, we have a rugby as an identity. Why can't we have an identity of Palmerston North identity also? So the crime is something we have to work together. All committees have to work together to prevent the crime. So as part of, if I'm an elected mayor, I will ask to work in collaboration with police force and to create a small unit, what they call municipal police. Okay. Yeah, it's also, they are lost. They are lost. They're missing a role model. Thank you.
Kia ora. Look, I think our Rangitane councillors answered it really, really well right at the start. And I do think it is a community issue. And I don't disagree with some of the comments that have been made here. But it's more that these young people have fallen out of society. We need alternative education. Glenn's right, education is the key. And they're not in school, we know that. So what are they doing? They're looking for things to do. So we've got to have the Peter and the Ange Butlers doing stuff. Absolutely, absolutely. So we've got to get others involved. And it's not just the police are the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. So we've got to get to the top of the cliff and understand why they're doing this. And I do think they're just... Can I speak first? Thank you. So it's getting the community together. It's getting the government agencies. It's getting schools together. It's understanding why these kids are dropping out. And I don't think all of them are bad by any means, but they've just taken a wrong direction in life. As a city, we're the enabler to try and get them back onto the right path. So that's what I'd be doing.
Kia ora, Matthew. One more question from you, please.
Okay. For Mr. Smith first. Do you support a move away from a rating system based on land value to a more fair and equitable system of setting rates for residential properties? If so, what would that be?
Oh, well, I think I know where this question's come from, but anyway, that's fine. Look, I mean, we've just seen that the disparity of having a land-based system, rating system, and it falls uneven. I think it's a no-brainer. We probably do need to go to the capital rating system. We probably need to see what are some of the unforeseen consequences of that. But look, I'd be a fool to say that we should continue as we are. It's not working. So let's have a look at capital. We've got to be able to spread or equalise some of those rates out as well. And again, just be really efficient on what we're trying to do.
Rate is a lifeblood of a city. And we have to work and then see, because everything's changing right now. It's paining me to talk about it. But our voters waiting for the solution. We need, I think I'm asking you to put this a submission, and then with the city council work together, because the rate, part of the rate is taken by central government. But we want, that's the rest of the rate sitting in city council have to be efficiently used. And I don't know, I'm missing a word to talk about it. It's paining.
I think of an elderly person who's gone and worked hard all their lives, and they've managed to get their home paid, and they've spent their whole life doing that. And then when they've hit retirement, the retirement income that they receive barely covers their outgoings, and they struggle. And as rates continue to be foisted higher and higher, then those old people are actually being cheated out of a whole life that they've worked hard for. And I'm actually, one of my policies is I want a rates freeze. People go, oh, how are you going to pay for that? Well, we're just going to have to tighten our belts. That's all we're going to have to do. Maybe the dog pound can wait.
Yeah, I mean, Grant Smith said it's not working. I wonder why he's still here. I mean, if it's clear, if it's not working, he should go. When you're penalising the good people, the people that save, the people that do up their houses, you're wanting to have everyone's devaluing their houses to keep their rates down. What a pack of fools. But we've got to generate our income from other sources, get into insurance, like house insurance. These are really simple to do. You pay your rates, you add on your insurance, your electricity, your phone, all the other things that are attached to your house, all the things that you actually legally own, electricity, gas, all these other sorts of things, your vehicle, motor registration, all that. So when you pay your rates, you can do that, and you need to do that through like a legislative council. So the ratepayers need to form their own body to oversee the, have some hierarchy and legal structure and what's going on in the council. There's real concerns. House prices are dropping hugely, and this is going to continue, and they've already got problems now with the current house prices, and so. You've got a really bleak outlook. You really need to do something about your future because the outlook is pretty bad. Is looking pretty bad, and that's not just for Palmerston North. It's actually worse for some of the bigger cities. Auckland's absolute chaos. They're just totally out of control.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Matthew Dallas, once again, from Manawatu Standard. Unfortunately, we've kind of short on time, so I won't be able to open up the floor for any more questions, but I'm sure because... How do we feel about that? I mean, I'm quite flexible. Can we have a couple of questions then? You want a couple of questions? All right, couple of.
Here stood next to this initiative to see it be re-kicked just through some foolish stuff like calling the Tiriti area zone for rural and not for housing, when we know there's nearly 500 people in motels here. Some people have been here 4 years in motels. That's $1,200 a week, $4,800 a month, $57,000 a year. Over their 4 years they've been in there, there's $250,000. They've got to own their house. You know, it's there's a lot of this not being looked at, and like I said, we're talking about the youth too. There's people out here and initiatives out here that have taken care of a piece of that going on, but they haven't had the support or the resources to maintain being able to do this, you know, properly.
Is there a question in there, brother? Is there a question in there?
Are you happy with what?
Couple.
But Rangitane built this Quest Hotel down Fitzherbert Street, pulled down a 200 or 300 bed facility. Are you happy with Rangitane? Like what's been done, you know, do you think is this an issue for marriedom or for just for everybody? But yeah, no, you should be up here going for the mayor.
Yeah, I reckon that's worth an applause. Actually, yeah, I just want to mihi to you for your ngākau, for all the tautoko that you have given people with nothing in our community. Actually, I take my hat off to you. If I had one, I'd be off right now. But actually, if I was in Grant's seat, I'd actually seriously look at rezoning that piece of whenua, because man, you are offering it to those who had nothing. Resources, if I'm sitting in that seat, you bet you, I've got you, man. And we've got those people that are homeless. We'll work together on this, 100%.
Kia ora, Colonel. Well done. Look, again, Glenn is right. You've done some great work up there, but you and I both know that it couldn't continue as it was. So some people can stay there, and I'm really happy that some are there. But we've worked together and a lot of this is government as well. So council can only play some of the role, but we've got some people rehomed, families, mainly families, into proper accommodation. And from the Mayor's Relief Fund, we've been able to help with some of that as well. So there's only so much the council can do, but absolutely working with government, kaiing order and building more homes in the city. For many years there was hardly anything built. Actually there is homes. It's not enough, I know that, and again programs like what you've been doing and others does go some way to help. Around the motels, I can't defend that because it's not my doing.
One more question, please, from the public. We've got one down over here.
Could I suggest that what the people sitting on the stage could do straight away to make us think, to get us thinking? Please tell us how much you would reduce the salary that you would get if you're elected mayor to prove that you're actually meaning what you're saying. And that's the key to me. Councillors today are earning 3 times as much as they did 4 or 5 years ago.
No, I disagree. Sorry, we've got to talk facts here. So, Peter, and during COVID, I reduced my salary by 20%, and my councillors know that happened. But we can't do that. It's not set by councillors, and that's a misnomer that people think we set our salaries. We don't. It's set by a statutory body in Wellington, and they do all of New Zealand. Actually, I defend my council colleagues. They get paid stuff all for doing a hell of a lot of work. But look, we cannot take our salaries away. Give you an example. what we can do, and my hat's off to our MP, Tangi Utakere, where he did not take 2 salaries when he stood for Parliament. He put his councillor salary into the Mayor's Relief Fund, which helped people that the Colonel's helping, and in that way. And likewise with my salary, that went in the same way as well. So that's all I can really comment on there.
I'm not yet a mayor.
I'd say I'll take minimum wage and donate the rest, but the trouble is I wouldn't even be able to get to work.
Yeah, Grant Smith lied again. He says we're a statutory body now. I mean, the citizens of the city need to really stand up and take the bull by the horns. And for myself, I was doing this for voluntary, and so that's and the CEO. I think my policy was just doing the mayor and the CEO for no cost. There's significant reasons for that. It's, you've got to be like got to know how they work, what they're going to do, and how to reset or restructure the organisation.
Tēnā koutou. Ladies and gentlemen, tātou katoa, we have certainly exhausted all our time here this evening. So I feel I need to bring our evening to a close right now. But before that though, just a reminder that your voting packs will be issued on Friday the 16th of September. Voting opens until noon Saturday the 8th of October. Preliminary results will be released Sunday morning on the 9th of October, and final results announced Thursday the 13th of October. All right, more information about key dates for this year's election at the pncc.govt.nz website. Thank you very much to all the media outlets that are represented here tonight. The Manawatu Standard stuff. We have the whānau from NPR, as well as The Guardian, and also Te Reo o Rangitāne Kia ora FM. It's been an honour and a privilege for me to stand here before you. Before we close though, I just want to close off this part of our evening with karakia again. Nō reira. E tō tātou nei matu nui te rangi. E te matu a te tamata wairua tapu me ngāna hera pono me te māngai. Ki whakaunia mai mātou ki roto I tō koutou nei aroha noa. Pairetia mātou ki te rangi Māori atangi ngā wā katoa. Te māngai ki roto hei tautoko mai. Aia ne, a ake ne, āmene. Good evening and good night. Kia ora tātou.